Hi, I'm Jilly G. Welcome to my kitchen. Today I'm going to show you how to make my ham and lentil soup. It's kind of like a stew. It will be on the thicker side. And if you've never had lentils before, they're a little tiny legume, kind of like a bean or a pea. And I'm using brown ones today, and I've already got them rinsed and drained. You can get these just in the grocery store near the beans. And they come dried, and then you just rinse them and drain them. And because they are so small, they don't take as long to cook as something like a bean. And then I've got a ham bone here and some chopped ham. Whenever I cook a ham, I always save the bone. And then I usually chop up, 2 cups or so of the meat for soups like this. And then I've got an onion, potatoes, carrot, celery. I've got some Roma tomatoes here, garlic, salt and pepper, and then I've got some fresh sage and some bay leaves. This is one of those recipes where you can add in whatever you like. Whatever spices you like, whatever vegetables you like. These are all things that I had on hand. My sage is actually from my garden, and the tomatoes are also from a friend's garden. You could use tomato paste in place of the fresh tomatoes, or a can of diced tomatoes, or even tomato sauce if you really wanted to, or leave them out altogether. So I want to cut up my onion, garlic, carrots, and celery first. We'll saute those first before we add in the other ingredients. Whenever I'm making a soup or a stew like this, I like to finely chop everything. It cooks a little bit faster, although I'm not so worried about it cooking faster because I do want it to simmer with the ham bone in there. But I like it to be able to fit on a spoon. Just makes it easier to eat. And I've got 3 garlic cloves here, but you could put in however many that you like or none at all. Because I won't add my garlic in when I add in my onions, I am going to put it in this little bowl here. This is the time of year where I really like to start making soups. It's been a long, hot summer. It's nice when the weather finally starts to cool down and you can start eating soup again. So there's my garlic, and then I'm going to cut my carrots. I usually like to go in half, and then in half again. If you like a chunkier stew or soup, then cut them as big or as small as you like them to be. And then for my celery, I cut it the same way that I do my carrots. I cut them in half, and then I cut them down the middle, just to make smallish pieces. So now that I've got my first ingredients all chopped up, I'm going to bring them over here closer to my stock pot. And my garlic and my salt and pepper. And then in my large stock pot, I already have about 3 tablespoons of olive oil. So I'm going to turn that on about medium high. And then I do have 7 cups of chicken stock. You could use whatever stock that you want. You could even make this a vegetarian soup and leave out the ham and the chicken stock and just use vegetable stock. It's really up to you. And then after it's all been simmering for a while, if it's too thick, I can just add in some more stock or some water to thin it out a little bit, if that's what I want. And then my 2 bay leaves, I'm going to leave whole. I am going to cut up my sage here. Whenever you're using fresh herbs, you use more than you would if you were using dried. So, and I'm just guessing, I figure about 10 leaves about this size will equal about 1 tablespoon, which would be 1 teaspoon dried. But you could really use whatever spices that you like. I'm going a pretty fine chop on my sage here. It always makes such a difference if you can grow your own herbs. I'm not very good at growing my own herbs. I only have a few that really do a good job. I'm going to put these back in my little dish here. And one of the other things that I find is such a useful time saver is to cut up your ham already. I find it so much faster and easier than just storing in the freezer with the ham bone. You store a bunch of sliced ham. Although I guess it depends on what you want to use it for. But for something like this, I don't even have to worry about it. It's already cut up and ready to go. And then these are cut up pretty small too. But it's really a nice time saver. And it makes it so easy when you want to throw on a big pot of soup. You've already got it ready. Once my oil is nice and hot, I'm going to dump in my carrots, celery, and onions. And, a little bit of salt and pepper. This is to taste. Add in as much salt and as much pepper as you like. Put the lid on so you can hear me. While my vegetables are sauteing, I'm going to finish cutting up my potatoes and my tomatoes. And as with anything, cut off any bad spots. And for my potatoes, I'm going to do the same. I'm going to aim for about the same size of chunks of potatoes as my carrots and my celery. If you like bigger chunks of potato, do that. And I didn't peel my potatoes. I like to leave the skins on, but if you like to peel your potatoes, you could also do that. And you could use whatever kind of potato. These are just brown russet potatoes, but you could use a Yukon Gold, red potatoes, whatever you like. Once my carrots, celery, and onions look like this, where they're starting to soften a little bit, I'm going to stir in my garlic. My potatoes, the rest of my salt and pepper, my fresh sage. I'm going to stir in my ham. I'm going to let my vegetables saute for a few more minutes while I cut up my tomatoes, and then I'll just put them in this bowl. I don't want to waste any of the juices. And I always find it's easier to use a serrated knife when cutting up tomatoes. And I am going to cut off the core end there. I don't want them to be a super fine chop because they will break down during cooking. And even though Roma tomatoes don't have as much juice as a regular tomato, I still want to save as much juice as I can. So I'm going to stir in my chopped tomatoes and my lentils and give this a really good stir. I'm going to pour in my 7 cups of chicken stock. Nestle in my ham bone and my 2 bay leaves. These are really big bay leaves. Now that my soup is starting to boil, I'm going to give it a really good stir, turn it down to low, and let this simmer with the lid on. I like to taste it and see if it needs any more salt and pepper. This is about where I like it. My vegetables are just tender. Now at this point you could take out the ham bone. I'm actually going to leave it in. I think it just still adds more flavor. So I'm going to turn the heat off. It's really a nice texture. And this is exactly how I like it to be. It's somewhere between a soup and a stew. It's got some chunks in here, but you can still tell what everything is. But it still is liquidy like a soup. And if you wanted to, you can take out the bone and the bay leaves and mash everything with a potato masher and make this a really thick soup. But I like it just like this. It is the perfect texture, and I really like how you can see that there is tomatoes in here, but they've pretty much broken down. Let's give it a bite. Try to get a little bit of everything in there. It's hot. That is so good. That ham has given so much flavor. And if you've never had lentils before, they're actually a really soft, creamy texture. Kind of compared to if you have a split pea soup or something like that. And that's one of the things I like about lentils. They cook down to be really soft, but they still hold their shape. And I've got some crackers here that I've made. If you saw one of my recent videos, maybe a month or so ago, I made Ritz crackers and chicken and a biscuit crackers. These are some chicken and a biscuit crackers, which I think these will go perfect with my lentil soup, which it's really kind of a cross between a soup and a stew. This is so good. When the nights are starting to get a little bit cooler, I love a meal like this. And if you don't like chicken and a biscuit crackers, you could always make some of my gluten-free saltine crackers. This is also a meal that would go really good with some biscuits. I also have a biscuit recipe here on my channel. So many different ways. You could make a grilled cheese sandwich to go along with this. So many ways to make this a lunch or a dinner. And I love that you can see all of the vegetables in here. It's so versatile and you can change the flavor every single time. Let me know what you think if you make this soup. Let me know what vegetables and meat you decide to put in it. I think my combination is perfect, but then again, every time I make this recipe, it's a little bit different and I'm still happy with it. So any way you make it, it's still a delicious soup. But thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't already. If you have any questions or comments, let me know, and I'll see you on the next one.